You're online. Kyle, please start.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Licott, your host, and welcome back to another edition of VCTV. VCTV, for those just tuning in, we host every single day with investors and entrepreneurs from around the world talking and opening up with you about what's happening in their businesses, in their industries, where they're making investments, where the opportunities are, and generally on a global scale, what's happening in the world in technology and in industry, so that you can be educated to know where to be successful and place your bets, or where to build, or where maybe to pivot to if you're building in one of these areas. And today is one of the greatest episodes of the week. Don't tell anyone else that, because I say that every episode, but truly, this episode is probably the most fun, and this is the build up to the end of the week. Today, we bring investors in again from around the world to talk just about investing. What's happening, where money is being placed on a very big general scale, along with advice to you, whether you're raising your first fund, whether you're raising your first round, second round, 10th round, whatever it may be. We're here to talk and share insights on what we're seeing as investors, and also what we're seeing on a big scale as we look and talk to other investors and entrepreneurs as well. With that, thank you for always tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them in real time. If not, we're always available online 24/7. Gary over here, he's 24/7, 365. If it's not him, it's his AI. He's got it. Don't you worry. At one point or another, we'll get back to you, and we'd love to hear from you. And always feel free to give us a thumbs up if you like the content. Reach out. Let us know what else we can do. If you'd like to be on the show here on VCTV talking about fundraising, or later today, we're going to be breaking things down with founders around different areas of building business, reach out. Let us know. We'd love to have you. Now, before we get started, big shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for bringing us together and making VCTV possible every day and to your screen anywhere you may be around the world. And with that, I want to introduce each and every one of our investors, some friendly faces, some very quickly rising friendly faces we've seen once or twice now, and some brand new guests as well that we're happy to welcome. And with that being said, Jason, first time guest, super happy to have you. If you could, little introduction and a little background for the audience to learn a little bit more about you.
Great. I want to thank Kyle and Elena for inviting me to be here. I'm excited to be here on the show. I'm in the Chicago market in the Midwest region of the US. I've been a very active contributor to the ecosystem in the last 20 years with entrepreneurs and investors, and recently launched my own venture capital fund called Propellant Ventures. It's a seed stage fund that is going to invest in the growth of Chicago and the greater Midwest. We are focused on a lot of different industries, but specifically we're going to zero in on industries that are resilient and really accelerating their growth because of what's happening right now, which includes healthcare, supply chain, future work, fintech, and edtech. So those are our initial industries that we're going to focus on, but we will look at others as well. And for the most part, B2B as well as our main focus.
I love it. We actually welcome to the show as well. This is super exciting. Can't wait to understand a little bit about what you're going through as well, raising a fund in the Midwest, focused on the Midwest, which is traditionally been a very, I would say, kind of tough market to raise capital for, but in recent years has really started to thrive because of a number of initiatives and great founders that are there as well. And so excited to hear your experience. And EdTech, we actually had a great episode, again, shameless plug. We're going to be doing it all day here on VCTV about the future of education. So really excited to hear your thoughts on that as well. So we'll come back. But Jason, welcome to the show. Gary, my man, the AI expert, the one and only, who is an actual human being. He's not AI himself that we know of, but Gary, welcome back to the show. A little intro and background for the few people in the world who may not know you, and that Morpheus hasn't already told them who you are. And you're on mute real quick. Oh, you're on mute. Yep.
I think you're talking about some other person, not me, Kyle. Come on. Where do I send the money? Anyhow, my name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 15 companies. We primarily focus, I have GSD Venture Studios, and we primarily focus on artificial intelligence. My largest exit has been, I was on the original management team at Click Software, $1.35 billion. I built a company up, Yva, over the last 4 years. It's over a $600 million AI HR tech company. GSD looks for incredible AI companies around the world to be able to cultivate them and help them go global. We take operational roles in those companies. And by the way, Jason, we're looking at doing a fund in Chicago. We're working with Lamell McMorris in Chicago. So we're looking at some stuff we should talk about. And anyhow, I'm pleased to be here. I believe that this is a phenomenal time for companies to go out. Venture capitalists are mandated to invest, and we're here to be able to build the best companies, AI companies in the world.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I think a lot of us forget. We don't necessarily talk about here on VCTV, but I'm glad you brought it up, Gary. As investors, we are mandated to invest. We raise capital, and that capital just doesn't just sit there. We are mandated to invest a certain amount in most cases, either quarter by quarter, year by year. So, when investors tell you out there that they're not investing, they're just looking for more opportunities, because guess what? They have to invest unless the world is ending and we all have bigger problems. So Gary, thank you and welcome back to the show. Mark, my man, just north of me on the corner of the West Coast, my fellow coffee drinker, fintech extraordinaire, welcome back to the show. A little morning cheers and a little intro and background for everybody.
Happy to. Mark Muller-Eberstein here out of the Seattle area. That's why the coffee. I mean, we have Starbucks. What else can I say, right? I mean, but not only Starbucks, Amazon, Microsoft. So I'm a recovering Microsoftie, left about 10 years ago. Founded a couple of cash flow positive businesses since then, and play in the investment space about the same time. As an active angel investor for about 7-8 years now. I'm a member of the Alliance of Angels. That's Bill Gates' father's founded that 25 years ago. And also managing as a managing member, a group called Codex 3. We are all angels and super angels north of Seattle. We are not a fund. We are a club, investor club, where everybody put at least a 6-digit number in. But we make joint investment decisions in the blockchain space as well. So personally, I'm in the crypto space since 2014. Written a couple of things about it, a few books. And I'm glad about this new opportunity that I can work with LA Token outside of Davos. So it's nice to actually be here in a global environment and not have to go to the Swiss mountains in the winter.
It's a tough life when you don't have to go to the Alps. But all jokes aside, Mark, welcome. We're happy to have you, and glad that we have technology.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and glad we have technology like this to bring us all together, no matter where we may be in the world, which is super exciting. And Ron, welcome back to the show as well. It's a pleasure to have you. We had you here just a couple weeks ago on VCTV and talked a lot about where investing was not going, and excited to have you back. But a little intro and a little background on yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I founded Northern Group 12 years ago. We're a New York-based private equity firm investing predominantly in real estate. We actually closed yesterday on our first real estate focused debt fund, which is focused on New York bridge and distress situations. On my family office, we've been investing in prop tech companies predominantly in the last 5 years. And actually, my wife just started an AI HR tech related company. So Gary, I'll ping you on that later on. But I can tell you that I raised this fund like this on Zoom. I didn't get on a plane, didn't get in a car. We're able to raise for the first closing about 120 million. So it was a very interesting experience doing it during COVID.
Wow. Well, we're definitely coming back to you and Jason on that, because I want to understand a little bit more about it. We've had a few family offices here on previous episodes of VCTV that have given very, very different views at different times in the last 6 months, and excited to hear kind of how things have adjusted for And a lot of today's topic, before we welcome our last guest, who I'm very happy to have us join today, a lot of today's topics will be talking more about what to prepare you for the next 6 to 12 months. Well, we all know what has happened. A lot has changed, but what's happening going forward? What do you need to know, and where do you need to be prepared? So little lessons learned to really get ahead here in the next 6. Noble, joining us all the way from the moon. Welcome back to the show. A fan of the space technologies, but nonetheless, a little intro and background. Welcome. Happy to have you back. Oh, you're on mute.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. It was good. I'm glad to be back. Hi, everybody. My name is Noble Dracone. I'm with Dracone Capital Partners. We work with pre-seed, seed, and pre-series A companies to raise them anywhere from $1 to $10 million to turn themselves over from MVP to full systemized businesses. I'm also on the board of M Accelerator as an advisor. We have a venture fund. We're in the middle of raising a total of 40 million, 15 million from accredited investors. And after that, we're going to family offices and our relationships there. So it's a small fund, but the focus is to support the businesses that come through the accelerator and those that are a little bit more further ahead, and kind of create a solid ecosystem so that they don't have to run out and find capital. They can actually work with us to help them cultivate the capital they need in-house.
Wonderful. Welcome back to the show, guys. Welcome all of you. Excited to dive in. I think based on everyone's introduction, I feel a common theme here. Everyone is either fundraising themselves or has just recently fundraised. So rather than go too deep into our topic, let's start there. As each of you have been raising a fund or putting a fund together, or in Ron's case, closing a fund. Again, congratulations. We'll give you a little emoji golf clap there. Would love to hear your experiences. Raising a fund for our audience is not an easy task. It also involves a lot of meetings, a lot of process, and a ton of work. And so would love to hear each of your views and kind of your experiences as to raising those funds, because we have had a number of funds start to get raised or start to come out. And as we've had in many downturns, recessions, moments in time, I will say, a lot of funds are founded, made big investments, and that is what turns into a good vintage year. So a good year of good investments. And so I think this could be another one of those this year and next year. Would love to hear how each of your experiences have been in raising a fund. And Mark, I'll come to you last because I want to talk to you about the angel side of things. But Noble, why don't you kick us off since you were last to talk? What has been your experience putting this fund together, and really share more with us if you can.
Yeah, it'll be my second time doing things in kind of a fund strategy. The first time we'd set up a hedge fund was a CTA. We raised 30 million in a long short strategy. So it was very strategy focused at the time in the commodities industry. So the switch over to raising fund to support pre-seed and seed ventures has been interesting. We've been bringing on and talking to a lot of family offices. Pre-COVID, we had several big events with our relationships with Family Office Club and Family Office Network that we'd intended to do. But, post-COVID, we've had to really do a big pivot. And to Ron's point, everything's been happening online. So we've been aggressively doing large pitch fests directly to family offices through our relationship with Family Office Network. And we've just been, talking back to back and doing everything through Zoom. And so that layer of dealing with the larger, institutional and I guess semi-institutional groups has been interesting. Then there's a secondary layer to our business in which we've been reaching out directly to accredited investors. We have our own database of about 1 million accredited investors that we have a magazine and podcast that we market to. And those two sets have had completely different view of what's happening. Whereas the dry powder sitting with the family offices and our venture capital relationships are a little bit more conservative and focused on, where things will be, post in 2021. The credit investors are really fixated on Q3 and Q4, and they're trying to figure out how to get over this particular hump so that especially the smaller guys who are fund managing can show decent returns. Up until now, they've just not been return oriented. And then the individual investors are just very stressed out in general at what the political climate is going to hold post November. So, it's been across the spectrum of the communications we've been having with investors and their personal insight. Everyone knows that recessionary periods are good times to invest, but the question that always comes back to us is, well, are we at the bottom yet? And are we deep enough into it to be able to feel confident on the next phase that we go forward on? So that's really been our experience. We've been successful in raising funds for both our clients who hire us as well as for ourselves, but ours is still yet to be closed out. We've only been at it the last 30 days realistically. And so we suspect that we'll be closed out before the end of Q3, but but we still feel it's just an interesting climate. It's pretty.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're talking about today, right? That's a good transition, because I think I've seen a few other funds as well. And again, Jason, I'm going to come to you here in just a second, that have leveraged those other communities, right? So traditionally have gone out, talked to family offices or talked to private investors, and now having to come into this new world of virtual only, have also leaned on those communities that they've built, whether it be their newsletters, their media presences, or magazines in your cases, to see what's there. So glad that there's validation in that. Jason, to you, I mean, you went off and started this. You're Chicago based. You're focused on Chicago. You're focused on the Midwest. Yeah, you're also focused on seed stage. I mean, a lot kind of working with you, and also a little bit of a challenge, I'm sure, as well in this type of climate. So what are you seeing, and what's kind of been your experience of fundraising for a fund on your side?
Sure. So I started working on this last year. I've had a lot of relationships with high net worth individuals. That's our main focus that I built over the last 20 years. So I had a really good starting point. And last year was building up those relationships, working on the thesis, getting feedback, generating interest. And then we started getting some capital commitments late last year. Holidays hit, and then, more money was going to come in earlier this year, and then the pandemic hit. So since we're mostly targeting individual investors, some of the money is tied up in the public markets, and obviously they lost some of their investable assets. Also, many of them are just concerned about investing in alternative investments right now. They're waiting to see what happens in the market a little bit. There's money still there, but they're just a little hesitant. We've been talking to some family offices as well. The ones we've talked to seem to have more capital readily available to invest right now. It's less about the market. It's more just about, the comfort level of investing in a new fund. But either way, we did a lot of events last year, in-person lunches, dinners, mixers with 20 to 40 investors, just to build those relationships. Obviously, we're not doing those now, but we went to Zoom webinars and happy hours. We started doing that a few months ago, just to stay in front of our investors, to continue to build relationships. And I'm constantly talking to new investors every week, and building up new relationships. So these are touch points also to get them in front of us at these different webinars. So it's really a lot of relationship building and touch points. And we did make our first investment a few weeks ago, so that was another movement to show progress. But we're heavily busy building, raising the money before we do any other deals. And so there, in the Midwest, there's definitely an appetite here, and there are other small funds that have come in the last 5 years. So we're not the only one, but we need more capital. That's the plain and simple, is we need more of it. We have some of the highest investor returns in the country in the Midwest, and Chicago specifically has the highest investor returns, but it's a smaller pool of deals that you look at. So there's definitely a need here for more capital, and a lot of the funds here are collaborative. They do deals together, so there's no competition really here either. So so I feel pretty good about what's happening here. It just the market's come back a lot, which is great. So that will help to get some of the investors to commit their capital.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that you mentioned too, and Noble's touching on this as well, and I know Gary and Ron will, is relationships, right? As on the founders, right? Let's switch gears for a minute. As founders, it's our job to continue to build relationships with people and with our investors. And sometimes we take that a little bit for granted because it's, especially in certain cities, it's quick to see people, it's quick to meet people. And, that relationship or that check can come very quickly after meeting someone. Not in all cases, to be clear, but the building of those relationships takes a lot of time. And now when you go virtual, it takes even longer. And just as founders need to hear is now put your investor hat on, guess what? As investors, we have to build relationships too, not just with you as founders, but with other investors. And those relationships take a lot of time. So as Jason is mentioning, and Noble, I mean, these guys are building relationships just as much as you may be as founders as well. So just take that as note, a little thing to take away. I love the idea of the webinars and the happy hours. That's a great tool as Noble has his podcast and magazine as well. But Gary, to you, I mean, Jason's mentioning this, they need more money. And I would agree, having been from the Midwest as well myself and making some investments there. But, what are you seeing in terms of your efforts in building a fund? Where are you seeing some of the struggles and some of the successes as well? Oh, you're on mute. I did it twice yesterday. Don't worry. I did twice in one show. You're good.
I'm losing my mind. So, I'm talking to investors all over the world. I've raised money in China, India, Israel, myself, US, high net worth individuals. I mean, you name it. And one of my partners is who's partner to one of our funds together is one of the billionaires. So I've been through this in a whole lot of different ways. So two pieces, and I'll address it like Noble did, and also in terms of our fund. So we're raising a fund, $100 million fund, to be able to take and basically level the playing field. We brought one of the board members of the NAACP on the board. And our whole thing is, why aren't there more female CEOs and why aren't there more Black and Hispanic CEOs of companies? So I've been working on this for years. Forget all BLM movement. Don't forget it. But before that, I've been doing it 12 years and have put my money where my mouth is with it. So we're building a fund to be able to take some top tier AI companies from around the world. And our first target city is Chicago. These are companies that are already revenue producing companies, put them into Chicago. They have anywhere from $500,000 to, $20 million worth of revenue, and to be able to create a fellowship program to bring people on board, right? And so bring somebody from University of Chicago that has high capability, put them in some role in the company. The idea is to groom them to become a CEO of a company. And I've actually done it. We have a test case. It worked. It was incredibly well received. And so anyhow, that's where Lamel McMorris, who's on the board of the NAACP and American Red Cross, is on the board of my company. So I think that there's a great opportunity now, and I want to really focus on that. I mean, these are, some people say they're dark times, but I got to tell you, this morning I've been on the call with India and China. So there is cash out there. And as we said earlier, they're mandated to spend it, right? It's not like they can sit on it. They have cash that they need to spend. So on that side, in terms of a fund, I'm finding people really interested. One is because it's artificial intelligence, and most importantly, because we can make a little dent in the universe and create equal opportunity and make the world the way it should be. So I think there's a lot of interest to it. On the other side of it, in terms of my companies in my portfolio, I've got a $2 million raise that I'm doing right now from Japan. It'll be closed in a few weeks. We just raised another round for a company. If a company so they're looking at the team today on the other side of it. They're looking at the revenue. Are they revenue producing companies? Do they have a future? Do they have a crack team? And if they have those kind of things, this is a great opportunity. This is not bad. It's just like Jason was saying, you've got to use, I'm writing an article, by the way, Kyle, you inspired me. You'll see it next week. Actually, two, one in Forbes, AI on the Road to Mars is coming out on the 20th. And the other one is Zoom and the digital transformation. So you'll see that. You'll see that Monday or Tuesday next week. So when we talk about this stuff, I'm writing about it. I think that this is a great opportunity if you do just like Jason said, and you go out and actually use the medium to be able to get the word out. People are just becoming very comfortable with using platforms like Zoom, to be able to enhance that relationship experience. And if you would have said this to folks 6 months ago, they probably wouldn't have agreed, but they have money to deploy. They want to invest in funds. They want to invest in startups, and it's a really good time to do it. If they're progressive and realize that the opportunity is now. Yesterday, I was on the phone with a fund. It's a $4 billion fund. And, and she said directly, I'm sitting on cash and I want to invest in AI companies that have a great team and are revenue producing. And can you help me? I instantly got two of my AI companies, one that has about $3 million worth of revenue, another one with 11 grown to 20, set up with meetings. So, if you're doing it right, it's all about, the world changes all the time. The people that go out and take advantage of these opportunities and understand how to be able to succeed are the ones that are going to win. The ones that keep doubting themselves and not focusing on how to solve the problem, they're going to lose. So people have money. It hasn't changed. I think on another way, what I found recently is that it's more, I was just on the phone with France. They want to invest too. It's how do we take all the folks, not just the US money, but global money, and find some incredible opportunities.
And that is a very, very key thing. I think another thing we tend to forget. We all forget a lot of things, but this is definitely one of those, is that there are opportunities globally and there are people globally that want to continue to invest globally. And that is a great point, Gary. Thank you for mentioning that. And Ron, I want to come to you. I mean, you just closed. I mean, you just went through this, and we talked a little bit about on our last episode. Again, congratulations. But what was this journey like for you? As we've heard a few different points thus far. And Mark, I'm going to come to you on the super angel side, because I think there's something a little different happening there and want to get your opinion. But Ron, let's come to you. What was your journey like raising this fund during this past 6 months?
So it was very interesting. I mean, we have a pretty large platform here in New York. We have $2 billion of assets under management. So obviously we have a lot of existing relationships with institutional investors and ultra high net worth and family offices. And to be honest, 80% of the funds raised for this specific fund was from our existing relationships. I doubt I would have been able to raise in such a quick time frame without our track record and the relationships we've built along the years. Having said that, about 20% of the new investors in the fund are completely new, people that I haven't met and I've never sat with them face to face. And I think it was a much more busier roadshow than I imagined. I mean, doing it on Zoom, as I think everybody's experienced, it's all back to back to back. I've been actually be doing more meetings because there's no more downtime, right? I don't stop.
You can't go get a coffee. You can't just take a break to breathe.
You start your day at, I don't know, for me, 8 a.m. And then suddenly it's 9 p.m. and you haven't stopped. So, you don't commute. I'm not wasting, an hour and a half in my car. So it was very interesting. It was actually exhausting. And I've noticed that with the private investors that have joined and the new investors, ultra high net worth, it took probably 4 or 5 calls. At one point in time, Zoom stopped working. It wasn't really that. We switched to just direct, phone calls. And I think what made the big difference for us is really the focus of our fund. I mean, we're not tech, right? We're real estate focused and New York focused on the lending side. And I think our strategy made sense to a lot of people. Obviously, New York is experiencing huge distress, and the real estate market specifically. So I think we've presented a very appealing approach and focus. It was not easy, even though it seems now, okay, we're done, it's easy. It was not. We started working on the fund about a year ago, so pre-COVID. We had an anchor investor, which is a big institution from Israel, actually, a foreign investment company. So we had our anchor lined up, but actually to get to the final size we needed, it took a lot of work and a lot of back and forth during COVID.
I mean, it makes sense, and I think the back-to-back exhaustion is definitely there. I think we're all seeing that, right? And again, it goes back to points very similar. If you're not picking this up to our audience, how similar these processes are between founders and investors in fundraising. It's very, very similar. Those investors or founders that are fundraising, guess what? We know you're going back to back. But you know what? So are these investors. So are we as investors. Just constant meetings, building of relationships, leaning on those past relationships, relying on warm introductions or going to communities. So lukewarm to then, if you have to, cold. And just continuing to go nonstop until you get what you need and get it closed. And Mark, that leads me to you is, you run this pretty outstanding, angel group. Now, while you're focused on the technology, we'll come back to that. But I mean, what have you seen kind of change or shift in maybe the way you guys are all looking at investments on a big picture, working with so many angels who, it's not a small check to get in, respectively. It's a big check. So some of these guys could be LPs, they could be direct investors, so limited partners or investors in your fund or companies. But what are you seeing in terms of how things have changed?
No, I think most of us angels are investing not only in early stage startups, right? We're investing in property, we're investing in funds, we're LP, sometimes invest in the GP of a fund. So it's a wide variety of investment options you're usually looking at. People have their own sweet spot and focus area. So for example, I do technology and blockchain. So that's something I'm very comfortable with. I'm making my own picks. I'm helping other people making the right picks. But in other areas, let's say commercial real estate, for example, I have no idea, but I want to be exposed. So I'm making sure that I have some competent people there that are taking care of these things. Gary made an interesting comment. It says people sitting on money and trying to figure out how to invest it. I think, yes, we are in very, very interesting times. I mean, that word has been stressed so many times now. But it's, and with, especially in the US with the PPP, SBA loans, there's still a lot of cash out there. And on the other hand, we feel the second shoe still needs to drop for impact to happen. So a lot of people are sitting on cash and trying to figure out how to balance the safety on one side and being prepared of what's coming and being prepared of picking up great opportunities while they're coming. On the other hand, not losing out on opportunities that are definitely presenting themselves. Being a member, for example, of the Alliance of Angels, we are seeing every month, it's a rhythm that we're seeing pre-vetted companies. And I can tell you that for many, many years, every month there are 4 or 5 great companies that are definitely worthwhile to look into. That doesn't mean I write a check for all of them. But out of the 144 members, usually there are a couple of people there that are supporting the organizations. For Codex 3, which is like a subgroup of mostly AUA members, we are people that are focusing globally on blockchain projects. And it's interesting to see the discrepancy there. While we are geographically much, much wider, and even from the financial instruments, we can go much further than a traditional angel group. The level of maturity we're seeing in the blockchain space versus what a traditional startup, maybe even in the AI space, would deliver on maturity of organization, management teams, even the pitch preparation, legal preparations. There's still a big discrepancy. So it hasn't been as easy as investing in the blockchain space as it is in other areas.
Mm-hmm. So that actually, thank you. And that leads me to my next question is kind of where are we seeing capital being placed, right? So and looking today, right? We've talked a lot about the past 6 months. So let's move on from that and look at today and going forward. Where is a lot of this capital being eyed to either be placed now or in the coming 6 months? And Mark, I would love for you to unpack blockchain and fintech a little bit more. We spoke about this yesterday on the show. We spoke as well about data around artificial intelligence. We touched a little bit on AR, VR earlier in the week as well. But from your viewpoint, as of today, Friday, mid-July, where are you seeing capital go now and in the coming 6 months, whether it be industry or technologies? Big question.
Well, I mean, we are big fans of the decentralized world for many years. So we have been very close to the MakerDAO project for many years. I mean, you can see what happens with Compound on Coinbase. There's definitely always interesting projects. Chainlink is another one, I think, where you saw a lot of momentum in the community on a global scale. In addition to that, if you look at traditional banks, it feels like they are frozen right now. They have, if you look at the latest quarterly reports, they have hold on to their cash in tremendous amounts. If you have trying to refinance real estate right now, most of our banks have extra points on top of their rates for refinancing because they do not want to refinance. They want to hold on to the customers, the money they have, and very clearly anticipating a huge amount of mortgage defaults in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and want to make sure as institutions they're ready. That creates a frozen, in some areas at least, financial market, and frozen markets create opportunities for other organizations. They might be coming out of the US, but I think more probably they will be coming out of other countries. Singapore has done big strides in providing regulatory guidance in the blockchain space. So it's easy for startups, or relatively easy for startups, to build compliant organizations. And that's important for us as investors, right? We want to make sure we're working with teams that are understanding regulation, that are understanding how to build compliant businesses that are lasting, standing the test of time. So those are key. Those are definitely key areas we are focusing on. And so we're looking globally where the innovation is happening. And I said this for the last, 4, 5, 6 years, at least, as I'm looking in the space. A lot of the innovation will happen at the scrappy corners of the financial markets for those people that do not have access to financial instruments. They do not have access to mortgages. They do not have access to insurance products, maybe not even to a bank account. So where we will start to see compelling offerings for bringing them the benefits that a financial system has. And then as soon as they start to mature, and it can be 1 year, it can be 5 years. I mean, if you think about Clayton Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma, you start scrappy and then it takes over. I think we'll see that in the financial sector as well.
Absolutely. We talked a lot about that yesterday and what's happening, especially in Singapore and the opening of their new their new payments system they rolled out with JP Morgan yesterday. And obviously innovation to build on top of. There's a lot happening right now. There's a lot of traditional systems, we'll just call it, across the board are shifting and changing. So opportunities aplenty. Jason, to you, same question. Where are you seeing capital being placed either at technology or at an industry level more than ever going forward for the next 6 months?
Yeah, I mentioned some of the industries earlier that we're looking at. One is healthcare has always been a big one, but telehealth is gaining a lot more momentum. It's accelerating. MedTech is also one that is getting a lot of attention. So that's one for sure that I see more investment happening in. Also, the future of work is a big one, and that could include HR tech, different ways that employees can engage with their employers, with each other, with their customers. I mean, Zoom is great, but it's not conducive to a lot of different types of meetings, and so that is there's a lot of platforms out there coming out there now that are engaging people in different ways. Also, supply chain is a big one, especially with e-commerce exploded. I mean, Amazon couldn't handle the surge in growth when this pandemic hit. It seems to be that they've figured it out now, but the fact is supply chain is hitting many industries. And that's one reason why we invested in the first company. It's a supply chain focused business. Procurement tech would focus on supply chain for Fortune 1000 companies. So supply chain is definitely an area that we'll see a lot more happening there. Also, ed tech is one that, it's an up and down, whether it's been good for investors, but educators and even corporations are definitely taking more of a look at this now because, again, Zoom is not the most conducive for school, for educators. There's other tools out there, but there's definitely some acceleration in thinking about ed tech. And then I think fintech also, it's always been a good space, but it's, again, with more contactless payment systems and ordering all that stuff that's happening, I see certain segments of fintech that are continuing to grow, and there's investment activity in there right now.
Yeah, and ed tech, in terms of returns, I'm with you, but also look at it as we open it up. Ed tech is now so broad in a good way. I mean, there's so many technology or building blocks that play a role into the idea of education. And if anything, from my viewpoint, what I'm seeing in this space as well, this is a huge opportunity for universities and colleges, so big and small here in the States, but globally, to open up new business models, open up new revenue lines, right? You've got some of the best talent under your roof. Build something with it, co-own it, and make it a new business line because something else may change. And I've had a few of these conversations myself with universities, and I think it's a huge opportunity, right? If you're a small college or even a bigger one, or just general K through 12 here in the States, these are things that you can pick up, you can integrate, right? Why as companies do we build our own platforms, but schools, we should be doing the same thing. This is great stuff that can have different types of returns in addition to just general multiple that we look for as investors as well. So I think you're spot on in that. Is there anything in education or fintech or these areas that you're seeing really get you excited specifically in them in the Midwest right now?
Nothing in particular. I've seen lots of different things, but nothing in particular. Future work is more interesting to me right now. I mean, there's a company that actually I run the Founder Institute also in Chicago. For those that are familiar with the Founder Institute, one of our graduate companies, Yva.ai, has created a 3D virtual environment for networking events and career fairs, and we've done a couple events with them already. I'm super excited about where that business could go, because it's very different than what other people are used to. You walk around with an avatar, interacting one-on-one with people. We can have a startup showcase, sponsor booths. We have a virtual bar, of course, tabletop discussions. So I'm excited about those types of technologies and, very unique for at least for that space. But yeah, ed tech and fintech, nothing stands out to me, but Chicago is the third largest public school system. So we have a lot of stuff here. We have second largest concentration of universities outside of Boston per capita in the US. So we have a lot of things that can happen here as a result. Yeah. So, but I know there's things out there. I just haven't seen as much as probably in other areas, countries or the world.
Supporting you, Jason, there. No, just supporting you. I think and the appetite for people to utilizing online resources is there. I recorded with Rutgers a class on the impact of technology on businesses in 2018. And over the last months, the graduates have gone up 10 times. So it's just interesting to see how much even the content that's 2 years old now takes off just because people actually have the time to learn and use the Coursera platform to do this.
Wow. See, there we go. Tons of opportunity. You can also go to the virtual bar. I mean, if you guys aren't ready for the virtual world, guess what? It's coming, whether you like it or not. The virtual economy is set to be $100 billion in the next 5 years. 100 billion. That's today's numbers. And get ready for what that could be. And when Jason and his team open up the virtual bar, we know that's going to 10x. People are going to be buying virtual drinks left and right for 10 Bitcoins and here we go. But nonetheless, all jokes aside, it is true. The virtual economy, the idea of living in a virtual or interacting in a virtual world, regardless of how the future of work progresses, it's going to happen. I mean, Ron, you're probably seeing this in the real estate space. Gary, I know you're seeing this in the AI space. This is something coming. Noble, and then Rana, I want to get to both you guys. What other industries are you seeing? So Noble, quickly, what industries are you seeing as opportunities of where money's being placed right now?
No, I mean, we've been in the augmented reality space. I founded an augmented reality company 4.5 years ago. And so Jason's statement, Zoom can only go so far in interactivity, but as human beings, we need that deeper, visceral experience. And so for us, our whole focus is on kind of a twofold, augmented reality / XR, extended reality, bringing the physical world into the digital space and blending the two naturally. And entertainment, at the end of the day, entertainment during times like this gets a huge resurgence. So a lot of focus on acquiring music royalties, buying catalogs and the like has been a significant part of my personal portfolio. And we're adding that to things that we offer to outside investors. But between those spaces, the sky's the limit, and you need AI for augmented reality and visual science. So it becomes a bastion of where things are headed. And education is key. You want to have ed tech, but ed tech still hasn't come up with a clear way on how to pass the information in an engaging way for hours on end. My son was attending a summer program for gifted kids, and they experimented with it, and 4 hours on Zoom was too long. So, we have a whole conference this weekend to kind of see what their reimagined version of interacting with children is at that engaging level. And so whatever the world looks like, I believe the core of it is going to have to be some form of extended reality that merges VR, AR, and really gets people not feeling so disconnected in their one-on-one interactions.
And allows for breaks. To Ron's point, I mean, 4 hours for an adult, let alone a kid, on a camera is a long time. We need a break every now and then. We need a refill on the coffee. We need to hit the virtual bar. We need to talk to Morpheus and get the updates on the life. But Ron, to you, what else are you seeing in terms of areas of opportunity for capital? I know real estate is a big focus for you, but are you seeing anything else, or maybe something in particular, like the repurposing of real estate to something specific as well?
So, I mean, in the tech world, the one sector that I focus on is prop tech, property-related technology. I mean, it's a booming space for a while now. The real estate industry as a whole is kind of stagnant and slower to adopt. I think some of the things that happened in the last few months have really accelerated some processes. So obviously, virtual tours of properties is something that is happening right now. Some companies have been doing it very well, and it's been effective, both on the office, commercial space, and on residential. We have in our portfolio units that we've basically leased online, completely online, start to bottom. So that's sounds simple, but it's something that did not exist at all a couple of years ago. I think the next big boom that will affect real estate and will affect many other aspects of life is the autonomous car. I mean, in our company, we've been analyzing how it will affect city life versus urban life. Will it push again, the ease and comfort of suburban life if you can get on a office-like car and just, without having the headache of hitting traffic and coming into the city? I think that's going to be the next huge transformational for our world. I think we're all going to get to see it, and it's still very difficult to say how it will impact. I mean, for my business, real estate values, which is what we're focused on. But I think that's going to be a very exciting time to live in, when, probably still 10 years ahead of us before we actually start seeing it. But it's there, it's around the corner. It's going to be bigger than e-commerce.
I love it. Well, it's going to have e-commerce probably baked in, as we talked about in previous episodes, right? The idea that infotainment, fintech will be combined into that process. So you'll be driving through a neighborhood and, Ron, you'll be sitting there virtually as people are touring homes, just clicking buy, a big button, and purchasing a home from their car potentially as they mosey around looking all over. But that is a true future. I kid, but it is a true future that's coming. And Gary, to you, where else are you seeing capital being deployed? I mean, you're focused in many areas. I tease you about AI, but you truly are, an expert in this space and talk a lot about it here. But where else may you be seeing technology being placed, or investment being placed in technology? There we go. You're on mute.
So you know, I've been 7 calls so far this morning, right? And in China, India, France. So where's it being deployed? I mean, people are looking for value. People are looking for strong teams, but looking for companies that have revenue, because they're looking for some safety. And I think that companies that are making a dent in the universe, that have those kind of parameters, are the ones that are going to win. I mean, it takes a lot of the risk out, and it's all about risk for these investors. So what are we looking for? We're looking for companies that have dominated their region, whether it's India, China, Russia, that want to go global, that are looking to access the global markets, that have dominated their space. And what it does is it makes everybody feel more comfortable. And we're looking for somebody that can really has a competitive edge, or a company that has created a new category, a category killer.
I love it. And on that note, I want to follow up with another question. Jason, Noble, Ron, Mark, you're going to be last on this. What advice do you have for founders as they prepare to fundraise now and in the next 6 months? I mean, we're coming up to the second half of the year, which is crazy to say how fast this has gone already, but nonetheless, there's a lot of things that a piece of advice that I'm sure we want to pass on. So as investors, what do we want to tell founders to have ready and be prepared for during this fundraising process they may be going through over the next 6 to 12? So Jason, let's start with you.
Be prepared to be flexible on your terms. You may have to come down with your valuation cap if you're raising a note or a safe, or even your pre-money valuation. So be prepared that investors are going to question you on that, especially if your revenue is slow. So just be prepared to make some changes and to make yourself more attractive or a better value for the investors. And I would say also find ways to be adaptive and resilient in this time, and look for new markets that you can tap into if you're being affected right now by the pandemic. Find new customer segments, do what you can to stay ahead, and the companies and founders that can survive and thrive during this time will really be positioned well, especially when we come out of this, because you'll have new revenue streams potentially as well.
Absolutely, and I'll add on to that, because we've mentioned this on a few previous episodes. Is not always just for the now, but what can last as well. So if you find new marketplaces, is this something that's short term, or is it something that's long term, and be able to explain why you may have made that decision? Because survival is the name of the game by all means, but you want to survive longer than potentially 6 to 12 months. So keep that in mind. But great point, Jason. Absolutely. Noble, to you, same thing. A quick piece of advice for everybody out there who may be fundraising right now.
Yeah, I think it's a twofold component. The first component is don't just focus on angels and VCs. Really start communicating with high net worth, as well as just basic accredited investors. There's $9 trillion sitting with people in IRAs, another 26 trillion sitting around in qualified investment plans. And so really come up with an aggressive accredited investor strategy to pull those guys in, because they see fewer deals. Those people who see the most deals tend to critical and where to invest and who to invest with. Whereas you may be able to find accredited investors who just get a chance to believe in you, your group, and your team, and be a little bit more focused on what you have to offer. And then you may not have to force yourself to be overly flexible in terms. So just be open to coming up with different strategies instead of going through the normal wheelhouse of raising capital. And the second thing that I tell my clients who work with us to raise money with them is that be very focused on costs right now. If you know how to handle the lean times that are happening in your business right now, you'll completely thrive when the pendulum swings the other way. And so in your documents, be very cautious and careful about what your cash burn through rate is and how to mitigate that in order to get your customer acquisition. If you can drive your customer acquisition costs down aggressively, then especially during this time, then you're going to be golden when things are better. So those are kind of the 2 points that when I talk to my clients, that's what I've kind of pushed them towards.
Absolutely. And also remember, the way that we reconnect and we reach out is a little different. Our message boxes are open. Our LinkedIn messages are open. Our email inboxes are open. We are open. So whether you think an investor will talk to you or not is not the thing you should be thinking about. Instead, who is the right investor for you, or set of investors, right? As to Noble, Gary, and Jason's point. But also, don't be afraid to cold reach out. Always look for those warm introductions. So go through your relationships first, go through warm, lukewarm, but don't hesitate to reach out cold. There are a ton of investors right now, and myself and all of us included, who would love to hear from you. Guess what? We're on social media. What else do we've got to do? We can't go anywhere. We're hanging out at the virtual bar. That's still social media. Nonetheless, we are available, so do not hesitate. We had investors on Tilo, one of our regular guests a few days ago, who will take an Instagram pitch. The point is that people are open, these inboxes open, so don't hesitate to reach out, even if it's cold, and look at different mediums versus just the inbox of someone's email address that may already be getting slammed. So I'll add that. Ron, to you. Bless you, Mark. Ron, to you. What do you have as advice for founders that are fundraising? Bless you, Mark.
So I think, what I found that I've been looking for when I invest, and colleagues of mine, aside from the great idea, I think the team is the second, or probably the first most important thing. And I found that it's very hard to communicate a great team over Zoom and virtual meetings, because you're not sitting in the same room. And a lot of times when you do a normal pitch, you see the interaction between the founders, the entrepreneurs, and it's harder for an investors to get that over Zoom. So I would recommend, if you're a founding team, you're trying to raise money, practice your pitch, decide who speaks when, and try to deliver that sense of chemistry that you have and how you interact with each other. It's very important for an investor to understand the whole team and how the team works with each other, and it's very hard to convey it virtually. I would also say that be very flexible with your idea and concept, and don't necessarily commit if this is an early stage on how exactly you're going to make money. A lot of investors try to focus, okay, how you monetize. I would recommend, focus on your great idea and try to build a great company and deliver that great idea, the idea you have energy for and that you're obviously excited about. That the money will come later.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. Is that now you're sitting on a virtual space. You're not in a meeting room. Just as you would for a meeting room, you would prepare a pitch very specifically to have in said meeting room for a set amount of time. To Ron's point, you would know who's speaking. Well, guess what? Now in a virtual setting, there's a technology that plays a role either for you or sometimes against you, as things may get dropped. Meetings may be a little bit longer. You may have more frequent ones. You're going to want to adjust that pitch. You're going to want to adjust your story. You're going to want to make sure that you have additional team members in some cases on these calls. And to Ron's point, know who's talking when. It's okay to practice these things. You should be already. Mark, to you, same question. What advice do you and some of the angels that you work with, what do you guys usually tell founders that are looking to raise capital right now and here for the next 6 months?
Yeah, a couple of points I just want to re-stress. I think Noble mentioned that manage your cost carefully. That is absolutely critical. I think being very, very conscious of what's your run rate, what you're looking for, what are you spending on, super important. Ron mentioned being ready for the new world. I think the way you work together in a remote environment, that's going to be the new normal, and it's actually an advantage. In a decentralized world, you have access now to talent around the world. Around the globe. We've worked with companies in the gaming industry, like BoomZap, I think I wrote about that 10 years ago, where basically a virtual organization of game developers at that point in time. There's a lot of best practices, how to build virtual organizations. Now it's the time for everybody basically to adopt those. On top of that, I think it's really important for startups to look at the terms. I think you mentioned this earlier. Go out with the best possible terms right up front. Don't start like your wish list and then you go down. You usually get one pitch, and if people write you off, you don't come back again with a different term later on. It's too late. And then leverage other sources of funding. It's really important that you have gone and like, what are the government grants? What is your university can support to you? Have you maxed out your credit card? What's your personal investment in the company? That's a question I'm always asking. If I see a founder who hasn't mortgaged his or her home for a project, why should I put my money in there, right? So I want to make sure that they really show that they believe in the idea and have as much support as possible to do this and go forward. And then just one more point, I think, before we run out of time, is take feedback. I mean, we all get pitches all the time and people have certain opinions. I mean, one of my favorite of early startups is just a couple of days ago, I got a cold email. My husband and I are founding a new early stage startup. And I basically said, dear Rachel, just to be clear, 90+% of angels do not invest in husband and wife teams. So whatever your plan is, find a good co-founder, build a core strong team. That first sentence already basically eliminates you from any further discussion. So, and she actually come back. That's not very often if I see that people just disappear and don't take feedback well. And that's, I think, as angels especially, but I think a lot of VCs as well, our goal is to help entrepreneurs. We're doing this because we care about entrepreneurs. We want them to succeed. We want businesses to grow. We want to help them. And there's a wealth of information and experience in that environment. And as an entrepreneur, take it. I mean, I think I mentioned this before, there's lots of free resources out there because we want entrepreneurs to succeed. So do your homework, make sure you have at least reviewed all the best practices, get your pitch deck ready, and then go out and have those conversations and be confident about having them.
And I'll add this is ask questions. You as a founder are not in the hot seat where you can't ask anything. You should be asking. And now more than ever, when you are not able to build a personal relationship face-to-face, as Mark said, do your homework. Look at all the investors you're talking to, know what they've invested in, who's on their team, why they've made some of those investments. All of this stuff is out there for almost all investors. There's some kind of press release, there's some kind of article, there's some kind of information about the investments they've made. You can find most of their team members on LinkedIn, if not their website. Know what these teams are comprised of. How can they add additional value to you as your company? A check is not the end all. If you're just out there searching at checks, to Ron's and point, money will come. You want investors to come in and add value. You want investors to come in to be there through the hard times and the good ones that can bring additional resources outside of those you can find with a Google search. You want them to be invested in you and your business. Therefore, ask damn questions. I'm going to be blunt about it. Too many entrepreneurs go and sit and talk to investors and just don't ask anything, and then are upset at the end that they may not know anything or they may not understand why they were turned down. Guess what? You can ask questions. All right, I'm breaking it down for you. As a founder and as an investor, ask questions. All right. Now, with that being said, gentlemen, we are at time. I want to make sure everyone gets in any closing thoughts that you may have, and also, where everyone can find you online, as that is very important. As we have a number of audience members who may want to check in with us and challenge us on some of our insight, but also may want to share their pitches with us as well. So, Noble, let's start with you. Quick closing thoughts, because we are over time, but quick. And then also, where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, it's easy to find me. Find me directly on LinkedIn. You just type my name, Noble Dracone. And just closing thoughts is that, the mountain is only as big as you imagine it to be. The reality is there is capital, there are funds, and, just like anybody who decides to be an entrepreneur, you have to have tenacity to pursue it, regardless of what the climate, everyone continues to tell you what the climate may be like. We have someone who raised 120 million with 20%. Which is almost $24 million that was just never seen in the company. So before, so the capital's there. You just have to be persistent and pursue it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Gary.
Yeah. So I got to echo those words. You got to stay positive. The glass isn't half empty. The glass is half full. Be smart, be creative, do a lot of work on LinkedIn, network with your friends. Use this network, the online, anything you can get to be able to develop those kind of relationships. I've seen it happen with Click Software. When we went out and raised money with Click Software and IPO, they said we're never going to be able to do it. The market sank. The economy was down. We actually came out as an IPO, and the rest is history. It was company was sold for $1 billion plus in August. So it means you can do it. Just focus, stay positive, and GSD. Gary
Get shit
at
done.
GSDVS.com. That's the name of our company. You can find me on LinkedIn, Gary Fowler. I'd love to hear from you.
Ron, to you. Any quick closing thoughts and where can everyone find you? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Easy to find me on LinkedIn as everybody else. I think that, listen, it's always darkest before the dawn, and we're experiencing an event that hasn't happened in the last 100 years or so or more. But I think as people get more concerned, I actually get more optimistic right now. I think it's not going to be now it seems that it's going to stay like this for the next 2-3 years, but it's not. I mean, the economy will reopen, and things will get back to normal soon. So stay positive and work on your idea, and make sure that if it's a truly great idea and you're committed to it, don't let some idiot tell you otherwise, and stick to it.
Believe in your damn self. To Ron's point, absolutely agree. And Mark, to you.
So I would disagree a little bit with Ron, is that I think there will be a different normal there, but that's also an opportunity. And I think those companies, those entrepreneurs that are embracing it and that are preparing and taking advantage of it will have huge opportunities. See us as investors and entrepreneurs, we're all in the same boat. We want to create a better world. We want to collaborate. We want to create more value for everybody. Leverage that. Be confident about it. Seize the opportunities and bring them forward. I think we will see very impressive stories coming out over the next 6 months of companies that have understood what this new normal will look like, helping their clients or organizations to move into that direction. Best way just to follow me, I think, is on Twitter. Mark M. Eberstein. That's yes, direct messages work as well, and everything else. I think that's the best way to get started.
And you just wrote an article. I just shared it.
What's the article? What's
the article called?
Crypto Finance Conference. It's blockchain in the enterprise. So what are the changes that are happening over the last 12, 18 months? How far organizations like Ernst & Young have come, Microsoft, but also traditional companies, how much they're embracing blockchain technology.
There you go. I'll share the link in the show notes. I'll make sure it's helpful as well. Gary's got 2 articles, so stay tuned as I get the pre-release versions of those for everybody. But Jason, first time on the show, I want to make sure you get the last say here and close us out. Any closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
Sure, you can find me at LinkedIn like everyone else. Also, my fund site is propellant.vc. You can find more information there. I would say that during these times, during down markets, great companies are built. Uber, Google, Airbnb are all built during downtimes. So there are great opportunities here for great companies, great entrepreneurs. The money is there. So if you build something that, as I said, is a great company, you will find the money. So, it may take a little bit longer right now, but the money is there. There's plenty of money available right now. So just be persistent and continue building a great company.
Absolutely. And gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. I know we ran a little bit over, but I do appreciate it. I know it's not Partner Monday, so you all can go and enjoy your coffee and relax and enjoy your Friday. Hopefully a half day in the summer here as well. And to your audience, thank you so very much for tuning in here to another edition of VC TV. We'll be back here a little later today to talk with some founders and also some other additional entrepreneurs about business models and how those are changing, what they mean for the new world, and also how you can be prepared to make, adjust, and thrive with those new models in place as well. As always, thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for bringing VC TV possible to your screen anywhere in the world. If you like what you heard today, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and I'll be back here a little bit later today with you for another edition of VC TV. I'm Kyle Ellicott. Everyone, have a great day.